Hi, I'm Adrian O'Sullivan. Welcome to episode 3 of the Coaching Playbook with this week's guest, Eoin Roche. Eoin is a specialist in the numbers that drive the modern game of hurling. So we have a really interesting chat about what the KPIs are in the modern game and what the top sides are tracking to keep track of their performance. We also have a really varied discussion on communication and the importance of different communication with various age groups and various teams. Eoin is currently the Dublin U14 manager. He's the coach of the Na Fianna Senior Hurlers, who, as we're recording this, are in the county final. And he's also involved with the Fitzgibbon Cup team in DCU. So as you can see, he deals with players at all different sorts of levels, so his insight into communication is absolutely fantastic. Before we start, we would like to say a big thanks to the Irish Strength and Conditioning Network for sponsoring Series 1 of the Coaching Playbook. These things just simply are not possible without sponsors. The Irish S&C Network is a diverse coaching network that includes members from a wide range of fields, from S&C coaches, sports scientists and physiotherapists, to scientists, to students even, hobbyists, and anyone with an interest in coaching at all levels, from grassroots right up to elite sport. As a listener of the Coaching Playbook, the Irish S&C Network are offering you a 30-day free trial. So simply go to the irishsncnetwork.com, use the code ISCNPLAY at checkout, and you'll have access to all the fantastic content that is available on the site. So thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, and sit back and enjoy this week's episode with Eoin Roche. Okay, welcome to the Coaching Playbook, the Hurling edition. I'm your host, Adrian O'Sullivan. Today's guest has a storied history in hurling with nearly every team in Dublin now at this stage. The Dublin Senior Hurlers managed the DCU Fitzgibbon Cup team. I just said to there, he's back for another spin with them in the background this year. Current Na Fianna Senior Hurling coach, manager of the Dublin Under-14s, and co-owner of the very interesting No Plan B GA, the GA performance process on Twitter. Eoin Roche, you're very welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thanks a million, Adrian. Thanks a million for having us.
I left out one important bit. A true and true Limerick man as well, which is why Sean Finn's jersey hanging there in the background. That's the most important one of all that.
I'm long gone. I'm gone since '96. I don't think that's happening.
we don't mention that. That'll be blocked out. That one, 96 will just be bleeped there. We still can't get over it.
Yeah.
Eoin, for a man from a footballing part of West Limerick, it's fair to say I don't think anyone from around 5 to 10 cents would argue with that. You've fairly left your mark on Dublin hurling at the various different levels. Tell me a little bit about your coaching journey and how it all started for you.
Yeah, look, like all of us, like coaching kind of starts at home. Very lucky that even though I am from West Limerick and from Foynes, I'm from a hurling family. And, you, as a young age, 10, 11, brought to Munster Championship matches, stuff like that. So a lot of the stuff would be from I've older brothers that would have hurled at a good enough level, and my dad would have been big into hurling. So that's where the interest comes from, being brought to places like, club championship matches at 9 and 10 years of age. I had an older brother that hurled with the likes of Kieran, Frankie, Beefy, Joe Quaid. So as a 10-year-old, I was brought to Bruff to watch them train under Bill Reedy. So I would have got a lot of, my interest, and the interest in coaching would have come from watching stuff like that over the years. Then obviously, like most people, you go to college, you end up in second year and you're asked to run a team. And that's where, and I was very fortunate to work under a fella called Eddie Murphy, well regarded, highly known in Cork, Kerry, although did a bit with Bennettsbridge, stuff like that. Brilliant man. His enthusiasm for hurling, his love of hurling just like seeps out of him. So I would have had that and would have looked after 2 fresher teams when I was in Tralee. And then kind of parked that then for a couple of years when I went hurling myself and hurling in Dublin. And then luckily enough, and you say like being from West Limerick, being from a football background and stuff like that, when you come to Dublin and you're involved in hurling in Dublin, all they care about is that you're a hurling person, not where you're from, not what you do, not your background or anything like that. If you've something to offer. And in fairness, Colin Birchall gave me a call, and 10, 11 years ago now, and asked would I get involved in a development squad, and I jumped at it. And got involved with actually the lad that works with me with No Plan B, Paul O'Brien, and another fella, Garrett Driscoll, and they showed me the ropes and went from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just when you're saying there, obviously we're from maybe 2 miles over the road from each other, and like there's probably no hurling between our 2 houses, but we were just from a hurling family as well. So it's amazing to be the product of your environment. Yeah, that's all changing now as well. It's amazing the impact that a bit of success has. Like there's two guys from Jared Griffin's now, which is only just over the road from us, who had never really had much hurling at all, on county development squads and stuff now. And it's amazing. It's a chicken or egg, the success came and then the interest came. It's an interesting one. But I suppose you're obviously a coach and a manager on, but you've really started to kind of deep dive into the numbers that are driving hurling. Like that's what your Twitter page is, kind of looking at the analysis and the key drivers in hurling. When did you first start to get really interested into the numbers behind performance?
The kind of the first interest, obviously, when you start in coaching, you're just kind of concentrating on what you can control yourself, and you're looking at how you can be a better coach, how you can interact with the players. And as you develop, then you're kind of going, well, how can I make this better for myself? Like and fortunately, even back as far as 2014, we were videoing a lot of our underage games in Dublin. So I was taking a look at them, analysing them myself when we leave it and come back and use it for training sessions and stuff like that. But then I got involved with Johnny McGurk and Seamus Breslin with the 2015-16 Dublin Minors, and really kind of started building my coaching around it, and started getting numbers off Seamus. Johnny would do his own form of analysis as well after games and talking to him and what he'd be looking for. And myself and Paul were involved in that setup, 15-16, very, very enjoyable. Successful enough, not as successful as we should have been, but we competed, got to a couple of All-Ireland semi-finals and stuff like that, and kind of saw the fruits of marrying numbers with coaching and analysing with coaching, and saw, okay, this works. It's not rocket science that the numbers and the coaching should be married together, but
at that time it was, though.
Yeah, it probably was.
At that time, like,
yeah, 10 years ago it probably was, but there was other people doing it. It just wasn't as out there as it is now. So then got involved with the seniors in 2019, and saw what Shane Carney was doing, and kind of looked at that and kind of said, okay, so how can I make this better? How can I take this? What they were doing was good, it was brilliant, but how can I make this better for myself? And kind of went down the coach performance analysis route. Myself and Paul saw the course in Carlow and go, okay, can we make this work for us? So we went two different routes. Obviously, I had cancer in 19, so I couldn't do the course properly in 19. In fairness, brilliant people down there. Johnny Bradley, excellent to work with. He facilitated me, put me back a year. Paul did the course that year, found it brilliant. I was interacting with him, finding out, he was showing me, sharing stuff with me that he was doing, showing me his assignments and his projects, and going, okay, this is exactly how we can improve as coaches, how we can improve ourselves as analysts. And started the course then in 2020 and did it during COVID, on and off or whatever. And really got into it. And kind of as I was doing it, it was brilliant, because we were in the infancy of what we were doing with Na Fianna at the time. So it was kind of marrying what I was doing with Na Fianna and what I was doing on this course, and trying to, implement what I was learning and put it onto the field. And again, kind of successful, got to a certain point, didn't get it over the line. But I think if you ask the players, more importantly, they've got something from it.
Yeah, I'm just laughing there at you're saying kind of successful. I remember doing an article years ago about what is success, and I suppose I think in your own head there, you're defining it that you didn't lift the trophy at the end of the final, but I'm sure you know yourself, and again, I suppose the numbers help with this. It's about improving day to day and kind of having that consistency in performance. Really, is what success is. Unfortunately, only one team will ever lift a bit of silver at the end of the season, isn't it? And I suppose that's what you're kind of in your own head. You're saying it there, whether it's subconsciously or not.
Yeah, they're the things you have to battle with, and I think you cover it well in your last question, and I think I'll answer it in your last question on it, So yeah, it's it's something we all struggle with, isn't it? It is.
I suppose since you started doing that, Paul, and it's interesting one, because I just had a chat with a guy in Limerick there the other day about something completely different, and we just ended up talking about performance analysis, stuff like that, and he kind of said that Limerick seniors didn't really start to really properly get into it until John Kiley came in 2017 with Sean O'Donnell. So you're kind of talking there, like you were at this in 14, 15, 16, kind of with the Dublin minors. So I think think you're doing yourself a bit of a disservice there to say like that you weren't ahead of the game. I think you were definitely ahead of the curve with regards to what you were trying to do. I suppose since he started at that point, kind of around 15, 16 with the minors, up to the present day, what you're doing with Na Fianna and what you've done with the Dublin teams in the last couple of years, what has changed with regards to what the key numbers are or what you're looking at with regards to performance in hurling?
Yeah, look, this is all contextual and it's all to the team you're with. And it comes to something that while I was studying that I kind of stumbled across and, learned. When we start our hurling life at whatever young fellas out there now are starting in their nurseries at 4. So by the time you get to minor, you're 17 years of age now. So you have 13 years of hurling age. General lads start their strength and conditioning at 13, 14, some at 15, whatever. So you then have an S&C age of 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. So it's the same with PA. It depends on when you start your PA life. What we're trying to do, obviously, with Dublin 14s at the minute is start their PA life at 14. So by the time they get to minor. So what you can give and what you can do with a team is really based on what they can take in. If they can't process the information, you can give them the best information in the world, but you can be looking back into that crowd and you can just see glazed over eyes. It happened to me with a Fitz team 2 years ago. I tried to implement stuff, and I think you learn obviously from your mistakes more than your success. Tried with a Fitz team 2 years ago to do too much too soon. Tried to feed them too much information, tried to give them too much of a game plan, and fell flat in my face with it. So while there is loads of stuff, like you can deep dive into the tackle as one of your questions will come to. There is a lot of stuff out there on outcomes. We can all look at our puck outs. We can, you can have 25 sharp puck outs, but what you do with that 25 sharp puck outs is the most important thing. What happens in second, third phase of that play is the most important thing. Are you getting into areas where you can damage the team? Are you working the ball out past your 65s? Loads of stuff like that. One of the things I like looking at myself is the deliveries. Who is delivering the ball, where they're delivering it to, who is winning the ball for the opposition. I like looking at that in opposition analysis because it gives you an idea of who are the key people that you can close down, who can you stop in the opposition analysis. Those things I think are vitally important. Obviously your tackle, and you can talk as long and as much as you want. And again, it comes back to what works for you. What is the best definition of the tackle for you? What do you want to marry the tackle with? Whether you want to marry it with possessions, time, whatever, to get the best numbers out of it. So all those things, outcomes and deliveries, are two of the things that I kind of look on. My project in college, my thesis that I did on was connectivity, was looking at who connects, what players connect in a team, who is the most important. That's all well and good from year to year, because you can look at Cian Lynch plays as a deep lying centre forward for Limerick. He's obviously going to be one of the most connected people on the field. Conor Burke 2 years ago was playing a P1, deep lying centre back, sweeper, whatever you want to call it. He was the most connected players. Stuff like that can be very interesting, especially with the role of the goalkeeper in the modern sport, because how many times are they going back to him? How many times is he really starting their attack from a big switch or a recycled ball? Stuff like that I find interesting as well. And I think that's things, the individual, looking at the individual and the role of where a fella's playing can be very important as well in modern day analysis.
Yeah, no, that's really, really interesting. We have a little bit of a peer group there, a coaching group, and there's a guy on it, Ronan Byrne, who would have been with Castleknock there for the last couple of years. And he did a bit of a deep dive on ball delivery zones with the Wicklow Hurlers, so across 2 seasons. And then Colm Codd was with me in Dublin there, him, if I come across him, very good guy. He would have done it with the Camogie, and then I got data from another team as well, a senior intercounty hurling team at a higher level than Wicklow. And it was amazing that, like, at 3 different levels, the correlation between the ball delivery zones, the ball retention, and the chances created, it was almost as if we were kind of looking at it going, geez, like, how have we not seen this before? Like, it's like it's almost like a formula. You get the ball to here, your chances of retaining it increase, your chances of creating chances increase. And it's just so, like, those kind of things, I think. Whereas when I kind of started off at intercounty level, maybe 2015, 16, that just wasn't thought about. It was just like a different language altogether, completely different. But yeah, the connectivity thing is very, very interesting. Like, I suppose you kind of touched on it there. Like, I think a lot of teams struggle on the transition with actually just linking the defense and the attack. So I suppose it could be used to coach your own players as well. But I think the one thing that kind of resonated with me there was just trying to find those connectors on the opposition, and obviously that will influence your man marking roles and trying to negate the opposition and stuff like that as well. So that's really, really interesting. On, I suppose the next question you've nearly almost answered, really, but no, maybe not. I suppose we've talked a little bit about performance in matches and stuff like that, but as a coach then, and you take away these numbers, like, how much do the numbers impact on what you do on the training pitch?
Yeah, immensely. They have to marry. Like, they have to marry together. Like, what you're talking about there, let's say you're building your play from your back to your front. What is happening at the back and what is happening at the front, what's happening with your defenders building the ball out, has to marry with the movement and the space that's been created by your forwards. So you can build the ball to the 65 as much as you want, but if you don't have the movement inside, or the pockets opened up, or the people inside doing the right things to be able to win that ball and open up the space for that ball to be hit into, then your numbers won't match up. So you have to marry everything in together. Like, you have to look at your puck outs, your short puck outs. If you're not getting success off your short puck outs, you have to ask yourself why. You have to marry your video analysis with your numbers. Okay, you look, okay, we hit 15 short puck outs. We only worked 5 past our 65. We only got 3 shots off. Why did that happen? So you go back, you have your number, you look at your video, you see what happened, and then you take it onto the pitch and you try and fix it. Or you hope that they fix it, and you facilitate them fixing it.
It's like, I suppose it's a slightly different thing as well, but obviously you're into both, right? You're a coach, I suppose, that does analysis. I think it's incredibly important. For me, the most important relationship access in a management team is the manager, the head coach, the analyst, and then obviously the S&C as well. But I think, like, if the coach, the analyst, and the manager aren't all on the same page, then you're absolutely at nothing, really, aren't you? Like, I think it's so important.
Definitely. They need to be, there needs to, like, it's like everything. There has to be relationships.
Yeah.
You have to have a relationship. Any teams that we work with, the teams that generally have the more success are the ones that we have the ones that we have that 40-minute phone call going through what happened. It's not just we give someone a number and they go away and do it. We put that into context and marry it. But the one thing that I would, and I'd be a strong believer in, even down to under 14s, and from all the research I read, it's what you're talking about. There's the relationship between the coach, the analyst, the S&C. But the most important person has to come into that too, is the player. And I found in the last few years, once the player is involved in that process, once you sit down to do your operational definitions, once you sit down to do what your KPIs are, and you involve the player in that process, it makes it an awful lot easier to implement it, because they're part of it. Yeah. So, like, I asked the player yesterday, just a quick example, asked the player that I've been involved with for 4 years to give me, just describe our puck outs on a certain time of the game. Just send me on 4 of them so I can do up a graphic for other players. And he actually sent me a PowerPoint with the breakdown, with it done, with the graphic on it. So that'll tell you the journey he's been on for 3 or 4 years. He's been with me. He's able to now, because he's been in this process for 3 or 4 years, he could send me a PowerPoint with those puck outs on it. So that's kind of the place you want to take them.
That's class. It's like, I saw I haven't actually watched it back just yet, but the webinar that Sean O'Donnell did with the Performa. But I saw the clip, one of the clips on Twitter was just about, and I suppose I'd be interested to get your insight into this now, as you said, starting the performance journey with under 14s, or the analysis journey with under 14s, the importance of them having a positive experience. And I did a little bit of a social experiment this year at Galway, and I probably, I don't know ethics or anything to do it, but I used to send the players 5 or 6 clips completely out of context, no title on them, no comments on them, and just ask them for their feedback.
Yeah,
and I always try and weigh the clips like 60% positive and 40% improvements, and they nearly all come back with a negative comment on every clip. Whatever process they'd gone through in their early career. They were just constantly looking for the negative. I just thought it was really interesting. Really interesting insight.
Yeah, would have done something very similar with the 14s actually, but what we do is we play the clip without a graphic, we do it in a group setting. So we'd have, what we started off was very small. We have a 30-minute PA meeting after they played, let's say, 2 or 3 games. And you'd play the clip with no graphic, no explanation in it, and put it to the floor. Give me the positive or negative from this clip. And generally, in fairness to them, they picked up on it fairly well, and everything, like there was obviously a couple of, because hurling is the way it is now, you have a lot of these lads that are in rugby schools, so they've had exposure to it, to PA, so they know what they're looking for. So you would have a few like that, and then you have to develop the other lads that wouldn't have any. But in general, the same kind of concept. But I'd have to say, no, you will. We built that up then to them doing individual clips on their own clips, putting their own stuff on Huddle. And we did get 1 or 2 that were pulling 3 negatives, no positive. And you have to address that and say, look, you have to look at what you do well too, and you have to look at how you can improve what you're doing well and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely.
It's kind of, I suppose, when you're 13 or 14 as well, it's just such an Irish thing as well. We don't want to admit we're good at anything either, do we? Like, and you're kind of going, I'm going to show the coach now that I'm really willing to improve here. I'm going to pull all the negative stuff now on the jaw. It's like, it's kind of that's the kind of mindset you're in when you're a young lad. To a certain extent, you're afraid to go, you know what? I am class when I turn onto my left and step back onto my right.
Yeah,
you know,
it's positive reinforcement for them as well, seeing them doing positive things, you know, and understanding that, which is good.
Yeah, no, and I suppose that so a different question, to slightly go off tangent. It's a question I wanted to ask there about 30 seconds ago, but if we go back to what we're talking about, what you're doing on the training pitch, and we're talking about that connectivity and movement and link and everything, I suppose I would have been one of these guys that went absolutely up to my neck in games-based stuff, right, around 2014, 15, 16, and would nearly have sneered at the idea of uncontested or patterns of play or anything like that. And I suppose, like, looking at the likes of Bielsa and these guys, then, like, it's all patterns of play and stuff like that. Like, how much non-contested or uncontested patterns of play stuff would you do to try and improve that, I suppose, that link or that symphony between kind of transitioning the ball from defense to the connectivity to the movement in attack and stuff like that? Or what's your balance when you're trying to get that right?
Again, it's dependent on where you are on it. If you're trying to start it off, and if you're trying to, you know, implement it initially, you have to go uncontested to get it to work, to let them to see how it happens, and then it's built through the year. That, like, you're building out play, you put 2 blockers in, and then you build it up to where you're getting into championship, and you have the full 6-on-6. You're building out, you have it as match scenario as possible. But to start something off, and even sometimes we do it fairly regularly in one of the teams I'm with on match week, we will do just a simple build a play of put players of where they would be on the pitch. Let's say you're someone in full backline, Marion would have someone in a half backline. He's going to be feeding the ball to midfield, and you have the delivery completely uncontested. Just so they're doing the movement, they're replicating what you'd hope to do in the field. So I think it has to be this situational of where you are in the process of it, and also what you're preparing for. You know, so yeah, we would do both. And we would actually break it down with the 14s especially, and with younger teams, you'd actually maybe take some of the pitch out of it. So you're actually breaking it down to areas of the pitch that, okay, this is kind of what we want to do here. And then we'll build it up to what we do further up the field then at a later date. So little things like that. So it doesn't have to be full pitch, full contested all the time, because generally, when you're trying, and it can be the most frustrating thing when you're standing with a whistle in the middle of the field, it breaks down, and it's as frustrating for the player. So you want it to work, and then to build on it. Yeah, no, I agree. I think, like, we're naive as coaches if we don't use the uncontested stuff, because if you're trying to rep something and program it, the only way to guarantee that you're going to get the number of reps required to kind of make it semi-automatic, obviously you have to have the decision-making part of it and all that,
is to rep it, because you put it into a match situation, the scenario you're looking for might only happen 2, 3, 4 times. You can try and create it as much as you want, but as soon as you have the contest and the turnover and the tackle, it's going to stop it from happening. So you kind of have to unorganically nearly create it. So I think that's a very interesting takeaway on for anyone that's listening.
On the flip side of that, I found the best fixes come when it does break down and that contested. 100%. You know, and the players' input in that of, let's say, the different presses that all teams are doing on sharp puck outs and stuff like that, and finding that fix, you know, when it does break down, you have to get to that contested part of it to get the real learnings out of it. But I understand that you have to build on it too.
Yeah, on that, you know, how much video analysis do you do of your training sessions? Say if you're looking at really working on something really important, something that's really fundamental to how you play, will you get the camera out and have a look at it? And
unfortunately not. No. I don't think I've ever worked with a setup that's videoed the training, and it's something that has to be done, that should be done. And I just haven't worked with a setup that have done it.
Yeah, right. When I got Cullum into Dublin Camogie, one of the first nights he rocked down, is him rocking down with the camera over the shoulder. I was like, where are you going with that? And he's like, sure, something might happen. Sure, we'll record a session and something might happen. I was like, all right. So then we started getting a bit more specific with it. Then it was just like, look, if we're working on something really fundamentally important, let's record it. But what I found it good for as well on is, look, we've all been in situations here where we start to hit championship time, and you've 33 or 34 players in the panel, and only maybe 20 are getting game time. And like, one of your biggest challenges always as a manager is keeping that interest in the players kind of from 23 to 35, and not just keeping interest, but getting valuable game tape for them to actually give feedback so that they can improve, because that's the hardest thing. So we would, like, if we were playing a 20-minute game and training on a Tuesday night, Cullum would record it, and then we'd tag it the same way as we would a normal game. So then, even if you're not getting championship game time, at least you've something to come back to the coaches with, look, can you give me feedback on this or whatever. So I definitely recommend it. I wouldn't go completely OTT where you're recording every minute of every session, and we wouldn't have the time anyway as amateur coaches. You just wouldn't simply have the time. But I think there is good value in it. Like, you can use it in different ways to keep the improvement going in the squad, you know.
Definitely, and it's something that hopefully I'll get to look at in with development squads.
Yeah. Next question is a kind of a follow on to the training ground. I suppose on match days, how influenced are you by the numbers when you're making changes? So they could be tactical changes, substitutions. What part does it play in your decision-making process on match day?
It would play a big part in what we do, yeah. But again, there has to be context in what's happening. You have to marry, and sometimes it's become less important, but there is a coaching instinct as well to what you see, you know, and you have to be able to implement that and marry that with the number. With the groups I'm with at the minute, we don't have feeds, so you don't have footage. Yeah. So you have to go off your coaching instinct, marry that with the numbers, and marry that then with what's happening on the pitch. Like, it's dependent on what the opposition, what way they're playing. If they're sitting half back lines back, you're not going to get the same red zone deliveries that you would want. So you have to adjust that. If you're dominating the game, are you getting the same number of tackles that you would normally be getting in a game? One of our big numbers is a 60-40. It's kind of a ball that you should be winning. You know, that touch on the ground that you should be winning. Mm-hmm. And we find that it's not my number. It's actually Nigel O'Hara's number. He came up with the concept, and he got me to define it and to measure it. That for us is a very, very good indication of how we're going, because it looks at kind of the mentality, that the mindset the boys are in. If they're winning those balls that they should be winning, it kind of is a good indicator. And if our numbers are good there, it is a very good indicator of how we're going as a team. And if they're poor, it generally, you know, the mindset's not right, the application's not right, so we're not winning those balls we should be winning. Mm-hmm.
That's the fantastic thing about analysis on, isn't it? Like, I've never heard of anyone using something like that specifically before. So obviously you've come up with that number that works for you guys. Like, Joe, like, it's not a perfect science, is it? Like, it's like you just have to find whatever works for you and adjust it. And
but when I initially heard of it, I didn't think it could be defined. I said, how do you look at it? Yeah, I was kind of going, how do we define this? How do we look at it? And we came up with a definition that worked for us. And it's after with the tackle, it's kind of our main number.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think that's a huge takeaway for anyone listening to this that's kind of maybe trying to implement anything with their own club or their school team or whatever it is that, there are certain numbers like we spoke about, ball delivery zones and puck outs and all this that, look, they're consistent across everyone's performance analysis, but like, don't be afraid to go and find something that works for you. It doesn't,
exactly,
even if someone else thinks it's stupid, if it works for you and if it's achieving the desired outcome for your team, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about it, really, does it? Like, it's specific to your team.
Yeah, definitely.
That's interesting. On tackles, then we've mentioned tackles a few times. Was this a kind of I'm on a bit of a tackle journey as an analyst, really. I'd say nearly every hurling coach is really on it. I suppose it's so hard to define the tackle these days with the way the game has gone and all that, and there's all the different definitions of it. But I suppose when I came in with Dublin first, we had Ray working with us, and we would have argued tooth and nail about this. And looking back, I can kind of see where he's coming from. So the Dublin wouldn't have been the hardest working team, wouldn't have been necessarily known as the hardest working team in Camogie by any stretch. And he, I suppose, wanted to create an environment where the players just had tackles as one of their primary focuses. And his big kind of mantra for the year was the team who tackles the most wins the game, right? And I suppose I would have questioned it at the start. I was kind of like, but surely if we're dominating the game, like, this isn't going to be transferable and trackable across different games or whatever. But he insisted with it. And look, it worked for us because it put tackles to the front and foremost of what we were doing. So straight away, our intensity, our driving games went up, right? So it obviously achieved what he was trying to achieve. But then when Colm came in, he was just kind of saying, look, this isn't something that you can track from game to game if you're just tracking the tackle count. We've no way of knowing whether we're working harder or less than the previous game. So he came up with, I think, just a work rate ratio. So it's kind of taken from the Premier League, where we tracked our number of tackles for every 10 opposition possessions. So we knew then that it didn't matter whether the opposition had 100 possessions or 200 possessions. Our ratio to that should be the same, or we should track it from game to game. And I know Limerick, Sean O'Donnell, does it per minute of opposition possession, which is kind of something similar. It's probably a bit more accurate than what we were doing, really, if you really want to boil down into it. What is your view on that, and how do you track it, and how do you make sure that it's something that you can track consistently from game to game?
So we kind of look at it more into ourselves. We don't look at it as the opposition. Mm-hmm. So what we do is what I spoke about earlier, is the outcome. So why do we tackle? We tackle to get the ball back. We tackle to turn over the ball. So we have a process of, you have your tackle, and we have a different definition to everybody else, and it works for us, and that's what we use it for. So then we look at, well, why do we tackle? So we tackle to get the ball back. So we look at our turnovers, and when a team is going well, it works in a 2-to-1 ratio. Generally, from what I've done, a couple of the sample I took, and from the games I looked at, if you're having a good performance, you're generally turning over the ball once in every 2 tackles. So that's generally what happens. So then you look at it, then what happens? Are we getting scores from turnovers? So once you get that ball back, once the opposition are unstructured, because you have them, they're on the ball, they're breaking out, they're doing something that they want to do with the ball, you've turned that then over, they are now in the vulnerable position. So how many scores are you getting off that? So we look at that. It's the process of getting your tackle. We have a very, it's very solidly defined. So our number, like I hear people hitting 80, 90, 100 tackles. We wouldn't get anywhere near that because it's a different definition. Yeah. So we want to get turnovers to that, and then we want to get scores from the turnovers.
Yeah, no, I'm just laughing there because when we did the Galway this year, I think we analysed a couple of games. I think Colm came out with they had 25 tackles in a game from the previous season, and the manager like, no way, we had 90 tackles. They're like, nah, that's completely. But sure, they were consistently tracking it last season, so if they had 85, 90, 95, it worked for them. But it's just we'd be quite strict quite strict. I think if you're very strict, this would be my take. If you're very strict on your definition of the tackle, the players chase them more. Like if you're too loose with it and old stray hand and a bit of contact as a tackle, you kind of, that's the standard you accept within your squad. Whereas if you really make a player work for it, they know when they've achieved it. Your intensity and everything goes up. But an interesting thing that we spoke about there earlier on, you're talking about, Joe, the buy-in from the players and
yes,
the impact your players can have on you and stuff like that. You talked there about teams being vulnerable when they're coming out with the ball. I remember one of the very first things or feedback we got from players when we were talking about the press in my second year in Dublin. It was actually Ashley Marr that said, like, guys, as a forward unit, we have to understand that the opposition are at their most vulnerable when they're coming out with the ball. If we can turn them over, then they're not structured, we can go for goals. So we brought in this thing that every time we turned a team over inside their own 45, that we win for goal, regardless. So it goes back to that point you made initially. It's like we sometimes, we don't sometimes forget that, but you can sometimes lose sight of the fact that your biggest tools are your players and your biggest information feedback is your players. Like they're the ones who ultimately are out there, you know. So it's very, very interesting. We're going to move on to some general questions on. So all the guests I've had on, I've asked them kind of the same questions, and I'm fascinated with how all different coaches will try and arrive at the same point, but go in a completely different way about it in a completely different direction. So I'm just interested to hear your answers. So look, a lot of our listeners will be club coaches. Okay, look, the vast majority of coaches in the GA are club coaches at grassroots level. You've been lucky enough to coach at all sorts of levels, county, third level, club. Do you approach club differently to county with regards to performance analysis? And if so, in what way?
So it goes back to your PA age. It goes back to your player, what exposure they've had. Again, you can't start throwing stuff that you would at an inter-county setup at a club player and expect him to absorb it. And it goes back to my story with the Fitz team 2 years ago of expecting them to understand stuff that I was doing with a team that had 3 years or 2 years of PA experience, where they had, like, it varied from county, because obviously with your Fitz team, it varies from county to county. So you have to go in and establish where their level is. And with most teams, you have to go for the lowest common denominator to see where you can start at and where your process can begin. And it's just, some of it is trial and error, but some of it will be from you can, with teams, you do a session with them and you get a feel for the room, from the feedback, from the interaction, from what they're saying. Can these take on more, or can they take on less, or where do we need to adjust it? I was involved with a team at the start of this year and started off with what I thought was a fairly, good place to start with a team that wouldn't have, but found then that I had to adjust it and really, really peel it back and build it up slowly and gradually. And by the time then that they'd finished their season, they were at an okay level. Mm-hmm. But even for me, the first initial meeting I had with them, I realized that they were not in a place to take on, let's say, what we were working off, maybe 6 or 7 variables, numbers that they had to look at. Yeah. So I had to peel that back to maybe 1 or 2 for the first few months, build that up to 3 or 4, and then build it up to more stuff with video and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And that can be quite hard at the moment, I suppose. Like, there's so many challenges, whether you look at club or county. Like, if you look at the county season now, it's quite short. So I suppose if you're going in there with an underage county team or that, and their PA age is low, as you say, you don't have a whole pile of time really to layer it up. So I suppose simplicity is probably best there on. I suppose, look, if you look at club, then like my probably last experience with club, I had Air Rogan in us for 2 years, and we'd spent most of the year with 13 or 14 guys gone to the Clare Senior Hurling football teams. So like, you're kind of going, well, there's much point doing performance analysis here, because the lads are only getting plugged back in for the week before the game. So I suppose, like, one of my key takeaways I'm taking from this conversation with Joe, and obviously I'm learning from all the lads I'm chatting to as well as interviewing them, is just to be aware of that PA age, I suppose, and not to go too hard too quickly.
There's also buy-in as well. Like, every team has that hierarchy of that leadership group, or that certain group of players that are up here. And if you can get that group to buy into what you're doing, like that's half your battle as well. So there is an element of that to getting them, and that's about involving them in the process too. So they are involved. So when you're, for want of a better word, selling this to the players, that they buy into it.
What's your trick? We all have tricks, right? If I said to you in the morning, listen, there's a group of lads inside there and they've no more interest in video analysis now. What's the one thing that you'll kind of try and find in their performance that you think they can? This will be. What's the low hanging fruit? What's the handy thing that you can go, right? I definitely piqued their interest with this now.
If you can identify something that is obviously not working for them, and if you can show them how to fix it, and you can fix it on the pitch and fix it with video. So if you can relate all 3 or 4 things and show them, okay, take a look at this. This is why it's not working. We're going to go out on the pitch here. We're going to do 2 or 3 things. And I'm telling you, this will improve it. We'll go back and look at this next week. So if you can find that thing that is troubling either the team's performance or the individual's performance, you can identify it, you can fix it, and you can show them how it worked. I think you can get buy-in then. Yeah. And look, we all know wins help this process. And once you win a couple of games and you show that, look, this is what we did, this is how we improved it. And it can be a lot more difficult when you're not getting those wins, but you have to go back and still go through the process of showing, look, we did this worked. But yeah, it's been able to identify something, show them how it's working, or show them how to fix it and how to implement it on the pitch. Yeah, that works. Yeah,
I sometimes if I have players that I feel aren't buying into it, I'll deliberately give them the wrong stat. As I say, well done on your 2 great tackles there the weekend, and you can kind of see the cogs kind of going. And next thing they come back to you a couple of days later going, hey, I went on the huddle there, I had 4 tackles. Oh, geez, yeah, did you? Great stuff, come on. Different ways to do it.
Definitely.
Yeah, different ways to do it. If you could give any club coach, I suppose, and this is the key thing here, with limited resources, because look, we're really lucky, we've been involved in teams there, no problem with cameras, huddle, all this, right? But that's not going to be the case for the vast majority of guys, right? So if there's any club coach out there with limited resources, 3 easily implementable tips to take away from your county analysis experience that they could apply at club level without needing to break the bank or go looking for resources.
There's, even without going to the free software that's out there, like pen and paper is king. You know, at the end of the day, you don't need any software, you don't need any fancy stuff to talk to your players, talk to your coaches and go, can we establish our KPIs? Can we establish our definitions? And get somebody that you trust within your group that has an analytical mind that's able to record on the day. And if you're only looking at 1, 2, or possibly just 3 things on a game day, that's easily done. That's very easily done on pen and paper. Yeah. Like, you don't have to have, like, it's brilliant if you can have the iPads, course, and you can have the live feed, and you can have all of this, and you can have all your live GPS, and everything's that's beautiful. But the fact of the matter is, they all cost a lot of money, and clubs can save an awful lot by doing an awful lot themselves, by training up someone to be able to understand what a tackle is and to know what a tackle is. And it's basically starting from the bottom. So everybody knows your definition. Everybody knows what your variables are, your KPIs, or whatever you want to call them. And they're able to go out, watch your game and say, okay, that's a tackle. That's not a tackle. That's a turnover. That's not a turnover. That's a delivery from between the 65s or whatever it is. And they're able to identify that. So without even getting into the free software, you can do that. Yeah. But then getting on, there is an amount of free software out there for analyzing video, like iMovie and stuff for doing biomechanics. If you just simply Google it, there's an amount of stuff there where you can actually break down free taking. You can break down stuff like that. That's all free software. That's very easy got. You don't, Huddle is brilliant. Nacksport is brilliant. All those things, if you want to pay the money for them, are good. But there is free stuff out there. It is very easy to clip stuff on iMovie and share it on your WhatsApp group. Very simple, and you can still add a small bit of graphics, a small bit of text and explanation and stuff like that. But then if you want to get into like the basic package on Huddle is not mad money considering what's out there.
Yeah.
And for what clubs are paying some
coaches.
People and some things, coaches, this is a far better investment, you know. And even when we're working with teams that are outsourcing us, we would, you know, tell them this is a way better way of spending your money.
Yeah.
You know, because you're educating your coaches, you're educating your players, you're educating your manager. Everybody's on the same thing. Everybody can interact on it. You can see what people are doing. And we all, as coaches, we love contact time. We love contact time. And this is a way of doing it remotely. This is a way with you to engage with your player remotely. I'm not as au fait with Performa as I am with Huddle. I'm sure there's ways of that doing it as well. But I know from Huddle, it creates relationships, you know, with your players and between the coaches, you know, and you do have a certain amount of players that they're not really good socially, you know, that they're not good at interacting. And I found even from the 14s that I have a group of lads that much prefer discussing this with you on this kind of platform because this is what they're used to.
They're used to. Yeah.
You know, and they're way better at expressing themselves in text than they are actually talking to an adult, which is completely understandable for a 13, 14-year-old kid.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I do the same. It's I'm a bit of a Huddle disciple now as well, but it's probably because it was the first thing I was showing. I'm an iPhone disciple as well because I just can't use Samsung, so it's more my own lack of flexibility more than anything, I'd say, when it comes to it. But look, as you say, the cheaper package is great. But look, we use a mixture in Galway this year. Like we use pen and paper for some stuff, we use the iPad for some stuff. I think you can find a solution that works for you. And a really interesting thing on that, and it's only something I was talking about the other day, is like not to interesting your take on this, not to get too caught up on the accuracy of what you do on match day. Because obviously hurling's a mad game. It's like you're not going to get everything bang on, but if you get it to a point where it's accurate enough to inform decision making, well, you can go back and look at the video after then and actually properly analyze the game. I think someone told me the other day that Shawnee O'Donnell deletes the stats after the live game. Just he says that they're pointless. Really, it's like it's fine on the day, it's accurate enough on the day, but it's irrelevant to actually giving accurate feedback to the players and stuff. So I don't know what your own take on that is. Is it something similar?
No, I'd fully agree. No, I'm not. I don't do in-game stuff. I'm not good enough to do it. It's a skill in itself. That is much harder than post game because you don't got no record or 5 second back or whatever you want to do. We'd be the very same. We tried to correlate the in-game stuff and the post-game stuff with a couple of teams, and it's just you can't do it.
No,
you know, because
you need an army of lads to do it. You need an absolute army of lads and about 15 iPads.
And they won't. Now you obviously get the basic stuff like your puckouts and your shots. They have to marry. But you're in then the debate, like when a tackle is made, is it a tackle or not? Or what area of the field? Like you're taking the quick look and you're trying to mark it. So post-game trumps everything, but your in-game stuff is vitally important because that is what you have at that time. Yeah,
I won't give too many specifics here now. I'll hang someone out to dry. I remember being at an inter-county game one day and we were all radioed up. And it came down over the radio. Mark Kavanagh had 6 possessions, or no, had 4 possessions already. We'd want to push up on him. And I was kind of there going, I'm pretty sure he's 6 points from play in my own head. So I was like, is he Jesus Christ? Like, is he turning 4 possessions into 6 scores? Oh, like water and wine.
Yeah.
Anyways, we won't go too much into that. Who is the person, Eoin, that you've worked with who has most influenced your coaching style?
Good think about this. And I suppose you have to marry your good experiences with your bad experiences too, because you know, off those bad experiences you have, I've had loads, you have to take out of that. But and the positive ones, like I go back to, obviously, as a young fella, my old fella coached me an awful lot. Now, today we don't agree on anything because hurling has changed. But my old fella would be, you know, a big influence on what I've done coaching wise. But Eddie Murphy in Tralee would have been massive. there's actually a fella that was over Crokes for a while, and he probably keel over if he thought that I was complimenting him because we did not get on. A fella called Morgan Lawler, but I was 30 years of age, and Morgan actually taught me at 30 how to play properly in an inside forward line. I did not know how to play as a proper inside forward until I was 30, and he was able to do that, and the way he went about it was excellent. But then in the last couple of years, like, and you go back to your positive experience as well, like Paul O'Brien is a massive. And when you talk about coaching age, Paul is younger than me by maybe 6-7 years. Not too sure. He's nearly hitting the 40 now, but he's not quite there. But Paul would have a good 6 or 7 years coaching experience more than me. So I would have learned an awful lot off Paul. And obviously Paul is the partner in the performance process. But then there's a lad from Marnogs, Gar O'Driscoll. When I started, I don't know, do you know Gar? But Gar has been involved in an awful lot of successful teams with Dublin up. He's off traveling the world now and whatnot, but he taught me how to coach kids properly, how to interact, how to be able to, you know, when we were growing up, how that coach would roar and shout at you, and the dogmatic approach. And he taught me how to get kids to actually do what you want them to do, you know, in a good, friendly environment. He was brilliant, and still is. I got him out as a what you call a coach, a one-off there with the 14s this year, and he's still as good as ever. You know, really, really good guy, really good coach, and knows how to coach people. Yeah, so that would be kind of it. Those kind of people would have influenced me the most.
Yeah, the big takeaway there for me, and something I would have struggled with as a younger coach, is kind of you're looking at these guys in maybe club or county teams, or 29, 30, 31, you're kind of going, sure, like there isn't much point doing much with them, sure, they know it all, or that. So I suppose it's that's a good an interesting point for me, or takeaway for me there. I know you're saying at 30 you were still able to take on the coaching and be shown something, you know. So I think that's a huge takeaway for coaches. If you're going into a club or county team there in the morning, there's older players there, not to presume. And you were obviously open to it as well. Like, well, you're saying no.
That was the most impressive thing.
I was actually going to stop myself there. You're saying you did say he's going to be shocked that you're praising him, so maybe you weren't too open.
I was still wanting to take pints over the shoulder on the sideline and couldn't move even out to get the ball. But he actually showed me that, no, this is not how you hurl. This is not how you play a 15-man game, you know. Yeah. So it was the way he did it. It was how he could show me and, you know, take it onto the pitch and actually make me visualize what I was doing wasn't benefiting the team and how to benefit the team.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the essence of coaching, isn't it? That's what it is. I suppose, Eoin, tell me, what does the day of a training session look like for you? And just maybe walk me through the outline of the usual session, whether that's kind of like the prep you do for it, or what kind of interaction you'd have with the other coaches, or with the manager if you're the coach.
Well, again, it's different to where you fall. Like, obviously with DCU and under 14s this year, I would be manager, so I kind of outline what's going on and stuff like that. With Na Fianna, I'm part of a cog where we've got two other very good coaches in Mike Dwyer and Nigel O'Hara. So in relation to that, what generally happens is we have what we want to do to work on. We will have analysed the game or games we've had in the last 2 weeks. We'll have decided. Take, for example, our puck outs that we're not getting enough. I know I'm going back to that again, but it's the easiest one to visualize, that we haven't been getting enough off our sharp puck outs, that we'll go, okay, this block of the session here, we got 20 minutes assigned to this, but we make it flow into something that's related to it. So it's not just landing something in a session for the sake of it. Nigel designs the session, so he'll decide what we work at the start, whether it's those 60-40s we need to improve on. Then we'll flow it into that game-based stuff. And then we'll finish it off on something else that we need to work on, whether that's game-based or it's finishing or something like that. So you take the analysis, you meet with the coaches, you process what you want to do. Somebody leads that, whether it's me with whatever Fitz, 14s, whatever, whether it's Nigel with Na Fianna. We give people their roles and their jobs, and we know what everybody's doing. It's shared then with the players. So there's also, you have the outline of what happens from minute 1 to minute whatever it is, 70 or if it's 75, but you also send the video, the graphic, or the 30-second clip of the exercise you're doing. So you're not landing in and, okay, everyone's not going to take it on board. But if you got 60, 70% of it that know what's happening,
whole thing flows a bit better.
And the time, like the one thing that I would be strong on is you're doing, not talking. Okay, talking, you have to talk at some stage. You have to stop the session, bring them in, talk what's working, what's not working, why isn't it working, why is it working, whatever it is. But if you're spending 15 minutes or 10 minutes or even 5 minutes, I think, my own opinion, they're zoning out, they're gone. Yeah. They want to be doing and they want to be. So if you take a couple of those minutes away by sharing the graphic of the actual exercise, it speeds up the whole process. Mm-hmm. So that's generally it. And again, it's the information from the player. Did an exercise on Tuesday night. I married 2 exercises together. One worked well, one did not work at all. And it's those 30 seconds after the exercise asking the players, well, why didn't it work? What could we have done better? And it's adapting it. And the next time we go at that is making sure that it is a bit better. It's not going to be perfect, but to understand why it didn't work and for the players to give the input. And I think it's so important that the players have their input in that you're not just telling them, well, this didn't fucking work because you didn't do X, Y, or Z. That they understand why it didn't work or why it did work, more importantly, then as well.
Yeah, I'm just laughing here now because Orla from Sideline Live, the only time she ever came out to watch me coaching, pretty much the very first thing we did went completely arse overhead, just did not work. Pull the players in and say, right, I had an inkling, I had it set up wrong. I was like, no, okay. Ask the players. They're like, yeah, we're not really sure. I said, okay, we'll explain it again. We went again. Same again. It was worse. I just went, right, we move on. I was like, you know what? You probably came out now looking to see a very slick session here now and all this, but you'll probably learn more from seeing me make a complete hames of it here and moving on. Sometimes you just have to go, right, look, we'll review it again. It could be me, it could be the players, but let's park it for the night. We'll move on to the next part of the session and we'll come back to it. Joy. You can't have too much of an ego to keep trying to hammer it home when it's just not working.
No, and like I said before, you learn more out of it when it fails, and it's not going to work perfectly on the pitch on match day. So the players have to understand, if this breaks down, what can we do to fix it?
Yeah.
And that to me, I think I could be wrong because I don't have any inside information. That's where Limerick are making their gains, is they're way better at fixing stuff on a pitch than anybody else.
Yeah, big time. They react so much better to what the opposition are throwing them. I'm a big believer in that train ugly as well. It's like you have to, like, it's, you got too caught up as a coach, everything looking perfect, and it's like you learn from training ugly. But that particular night, it was too ugly. we had to move on. What are the 3 non-negotiables for any team you're involved in?
Yeah, I took a bit of time in this, and I got 3 things down, but I'm kind of going, okay, to have non-negotiables, there's a lot of people involved here. There is the other coaches around you, and your manager and everybody, that have to be able to agree on these. And some of those things that you might have your rocks might be the most important things for the other people in your group.
Yeah.
You also, again, have to include your players. But to cut a long story short, honesty, I think, has to be top. And it goes back to your mistakes. Like I had a Fitz team a couple of years ago where there was a lot of really, really good hurlers on it. And you find yourself in a situation, you only can get 15 on the field, but you're telling fellas half-truths to keep them involved. And I had 2 relationships that went very, very wrong. 2 fellas that I would have had since they were 15 in that, where because I was plumb awesome them.
Yeah, sugarcoating it a bit.
Sugarcoating it. Yeah.
Can I ask you, can I put in for a second, Eoin? Were you sugarcoating it? Were you sugarcoating it for the player, or were you trying to make it easier on yourself to deliver the message?
Bit of both. I was sugarcoating it for the player to keep him, in that league period where you don't have everybody, because lads are involved with clubs and stuff like that. I wasn't giving them the full honesty of where they were in the pecking order. And then once we got the championship, you know, and look at what you call it, Fitz and O'Connor and Ashburn, they're all different because it's different to a club and a county because players are coming in and out at different stages and then availability is very important. But players will become available and you'd have to tell a fella he's dropped. And you didn't really have an excuse because they played well during the league period. So why are you bringing in X, Y, or Z? Why am I finding myself not playing now?
Yeah.
You know, and you weren't given your honest answer on it. And you know, look, and lost a relationship or two with those players for a while, you know, but built it back up. Then hopefully, you never know.
Yeah,
built it back then
might be on a podcast in 15 years' time. Going, geez, your man is class.
Come to one of your last questions as well about, you know, what you want to leave. You know, you want those boys to be able to come up with you outside Croke Park in 10 years' time and chat to you. Like, it's not always going to happen because you are going to upset people.
Yeah.
But honesty is definitely high up. And I learned from that day, those two boys who are still, both of them are involved with Dublin, both of them are involved with their clubs. They're really good lads. But I wasn't honest with them and paid the price for it. Including everybody in the process. I've been involved, and I'm sure we all have. You're involved in teams and you have your WhatsApp group and you have your players' WhatsApp group. But there could be 20 messages going on in the background between coaches, between PAs, between players and stuff like that. Everybody needs to know what everybody is doing. You know, you can't have a situation where you're on the side of a field and you're going, why is that fella there? Oh, I talked to Johnny last week and we decided we'd, you know, move this. Yeah, but I don't know that. The fella in the stand doesn't know that. And the other players on the pitch don't know that. We very, very high profile game. A game plan was decided the Thursday night before a senior inter-county match, and 2 minutes before throw-in, a manager told a key player to play his role differently. And we coughed up 3 points from the player that he should have been marking in that first 5 minutes. You know, so from even the very start of where you're agreeing how you train, your definitions of your KPIs, all that stuff, all up to match day, I think there has to be inclusivity with everybody.
100%. I'm just thinking of a scenario in the last couple of years there, and again, I won't go too specific, won't hang anyone out to dry, but I gave instructions to the guy at half time about his role in the puck out, and 2 minutes later, the manager had told him he was playing somewhere else. And we'd already had our coaches meeting at halftime. We'd had our couple of minute meeting going, right, this is what we're doing, and then gave the instruction and it changed. And it's like, but yeah, it's so important. It's, again, if you go back to the two guys that worked with in Dublin, Camogie, Colin Codd, Paul Ahern, were big into these scenario sheets that you'd meet on a Thursday night and you'd try and just put down, look, if our centre back gets injured, what do we do? If our midfielder gets injured, what do we do? Who's coming in? You know, if they're causing rack here, if the man marking isn't working, whatever. And try and take that impulsiveness and that kind of reactiveness, because look, hurling is a crazy game. You get caught up in the energy of it and the battle of it, and you know, we can be impulsive. So like trying to remove that impulsivity out of the game by going, listen, as much as we can possibly predict here, if this happens, this is what we're doing. I think that can kind of, and then like to go back to what you said about inclusivity, like the key stakeholders were all included in that thought process. So very rarely would something happen in a game that we hadn't thought about, but everybody had the solution there on the sheet in their folder on the sideline. So there was just very few surprises happening, you know. Yeah, that's very important. That's, if there's any managers listening in particular, I think is to kind of like I know we kind of have the cult of the manager and ultimately they're in charge, but you can cause absolute chaos if you go off as the lone man and give different instructions and stuff. Yeah,
and the last one there is, it's about the collective, not the individual. And that goes from top to bottom. Like, we do have egos as coaches, managers, whatever ourselves. But when you're making decisions on or off the field, it has to be about the collective, not the individual.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny enough, when I'm nowhere near as far down my performance analysis journey as you are. But one of my mottos for it is actually the exact opposite of that, but it still applies, is that you can't improve the collective without improving the individual. So nearly, but that's just from a from coming from a point where I think sometimes the players kind of from 22 to 30 get forgotten about, and we presume that just because they're coming to train and they'll improve.
Yeah,
but it's a slightly different thing. But yeah, like I agree 100%. Every decision you make has to be for the good of the collective. But that's not easy to do. Like,
no,
it's not easy to do.
It isn't at times, but I think if you keep it in the back of your head and try and keep reinforcing it.
Next question, Owen, kind of goes on from that. When you step away from a team, what 3 things would you like the players to say about you?
Yeah, I kind of touched on 1 or 2 of them. All right. The first one would be I facilitated their development. That I helped them develop. That that they became better players under my tutelage, and they can see that they have improved. That would be the main one.
Mm-hmm.
They're in a better place both on and off the field than when I first met them. And when I say that, okay, it is about them as people as well, that they're better people, but I can't fully control that. I'm more on about that they understand the game better. It's when they go home and they're analysing their stuff, that they're better at it. Mm-hmm. And the next person, because look, we only last in jobs so often. Like, we are going to be handing over everything. You've handed over UL, Camogie to somebody else, and I've handed over DCU, and we'll all move on from where we are. We have to, like, that the people that we hand over are in a better place than when they first arrived to us, both on and off the field. And the last one, then I touched on it earlier, that you can talk to them beyond the game. Mm-hmm. You know, that if you meet them outside Croke Park, or you meet them in any kind of standing, that fellas will come up. Now, I've had situations where there is a group, especially with the first few years in DCU, there's a group there of, let's say, Conor Delaney, John Donnelly, those kind of boys, Donal, obviously, fellas like that still touch base with you. You'd have that. But there's other fellas that you'd hope that if you met them down in Wexford Park, or you met them in Croke Park or wherever, or Parnell Park, they'd still come up and talk to you and have that. Mm-hmm. So it's the hope that, that they relate to you as a person, and you can relate to them as a person, not just a hurler, or not just he was corner forward for me on a fresher team back in whatever, 14, 15.
Yeah, the soft skills. That you understand a bit about them outside the game, and ultimately,
understand how they're getting on in their life, what they're doing, stuff like that. Now, probably be 1 or 2 players probably laugh when they hear me say that, but I genuinely do try to connect. Yeah, and
it's like anything on, isn't it? It's sometimes you just don't click with people. Like, it happens. It happens in all walk of life. Like, as well. It's sure there's players, like, there's certain players over the years where you just click with straight away, and it's kind of, you have that understanding with them and that kind of a connection. And then there's other players, it's just hasn't quite happened. And sometimes it can be your best player you mightn't click with, and it could be someone number 35 in the panel that you get on famously with, and it's not. It's look, human dynamics are they're kind of they're an interesting science, and it's hard to put your finger on it sometimes.
Yeah.
And like that's what the collective dynamic as well. And so if you're trying to connect with 35 people, then you name your first team for the first round of the Fitzgibbon, and there's 20 of them think you're I don't know, has Orla got a bleep machine, so I won't say it. But
no, definitely. And look, and I know in my earlier career that I would have gone towards the top end lads and spent more time talking to them and connecting with them. And that's not what it's all about, especially any team, but especially with club and college. You have to connect with those boys, that aren't your top 10 hurler, that aren't because they're the ones that keep it going. Mm-hmm. It's kind of it's the same but a little bit different, especially at senior intercounty level, because there's different periods in the season where you have to be concentrating on what you're doing, and it's a short season and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But definitely with club and Fitzgibbon, like, you need to be connecting with the fellas, and I have been guilty of it, of focusing in on the top end and not focusing in on the bottom end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's definitely something we've all done, I think, over the years. I'm going to ask you a question that kind of stopped me in my tracks one time on, and it made me very much question what path I was on when I couldn't answer it. But what's your coaching ethos?
Yeah, these are ones that crop up, that debates between coaches and stuff like that the whole time. I remember doing a coaching philosophy, doing a project on that one time, and I remember doing a PA philosophy and I kind of go, okay, you can have nice ideas and you can have nice philosophies and stuff like that. And again, it's very much determined by the team you're working with and the people around you and stuff like that. And what I broke it down to is how I actually coach. And it's kind of going back to something I explained earlier on. So the first thing I do is a visual. Give the player a visual aid of the exercise that you're doing. Mm-hmm. So then you go onto the pitch, you'd walk through that exercise. So everyone sees, okay, they've seen the visual. Now we put it on the pitch. Now we walk through it. Then you train it. And then you go through your different levels of training, whether it's unopposed, opposed, semi-opposed, whatever you want to do with it. So you train it. Then you play it. You got to play what you do. So you put that into your match situation. Then you analyze it. So you look at it, whether it's video, stat, whatever it is, you analyze what you played, and then you tweak it. You bring it back to the pitch and you tweak it, because generally it doesn't go the way you want it to. So you go and you tweak, whether it's a puck out defense, whether it's you're sitting on whatever line you want to sit on to defend the puck out, or who you want to give up. And you find out, okay, the big switched it and you've been caught with a slide press and your whole half of the field is, okay, how do we fix this? Mm-hmm. What do we do here? So you visual, you walk through, you train, you play it, you analyze it, you tweak it. That's basically how I try and coach.
Yeah. And I suppose the beauty of that then on is, regardless of what level you're at, regardless of what level the team are at or what stage of their progression are at, you can take that, I suppose, framework and apply it to any team. Like it's easily transferable, I suppose, is the crucial thing.
Yeah, as long as you got the video.
yeah. So yeah, there's probably lads sitting at home going, it's always, geez, these lads are always talking about videos. What if we don't have the video?
If you don't have the video, you go from your eye. You have to. It's not ideal, 100%. But you have to go with your eye. And I look, there is studies out there that show, look, video, obviously, once you watch it back a second time, you take in an awful lot more of the game and stuff like that. But sometimes we just don't have it. And even at intercounty level, sometimes we don't have video because it just wasn't available on that day. Yeah. And even the very odd time, now Na Fianna is different, nearly all our games are video, but the very odd time, we mightn't get a game. So we have to go off that, so, you have to work with what you have.
We went up to Belfast one day last year with Dublin playing Antrim in a challenge. And we'd kind of played maybe a squad team, kind of maybe players who were kind of like 16 to 35, whatever. We were absolutely atrocious. Like, it was disastrous to the point of kind of going, like, where are we going? And Antrim were supposed to video it, and they didn't for some reason. And I just stood up on the Monday night and I was like, right, guys, everybody who played on Sunday, you may ring Elaine Dowds and thank her. And they hardly even know who she was. I'm sorry, that's the Antrim manager, because if we had the video for that game, there would only be about 12 people sitting here today. So sometimes not having the video can be good for your career as well.
Yeah, it can be, yeah.
No, okay, so we're at the point in this, Eoin, where I'm going to let you turn the tables on me. Any of the guests that have been on, I'll let them ask me a few questions. So I'm going to put the spotlight on myself here, and you can fire away.
Yeah. So the first one is, what motivates you to coach?
Yeah. I thought a good bit about this, because I think it's sometimes we can lose sight of it. I think if you lose sight of it, you start kind of delivering poor work, I think. But the first thing, really, if I go really back, was not having made it as a player. Like, never got to experience those intercounty days and kind of big days out and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I really want a taste of this. Like, I want a taste of, going in on the bus under the stand in Croke Park, and how can I do that? And the obvious answer was it was coaching, So like that would definitely been a motivating thing for me, just really wanted to experience that top level of the game. I suppose then as you go along, then your motivation changes, and I suppose I kind of became a little bit addicted to kind of the change process and seeing improvements in teams, and kind of trying to take a team from point A to point B, and how can we do it, and improving players and stuff like that. I think there's huge satisfaction in that. Then I suppose, look, as human beings, I think somewhere deep down in our DNA, we kind of all have this kind of a hunger to be part of something bigger, like a kind of a collective movement. I think, like, I love that. I think, I'm not sure what order these podcasts are going out in, but like, we often speak of a slump when a season finishes, when you kind of feel down on yourself and lacking energy. And part of what we discussed was that a lot of that is from not being part of the collective. Like, you're so used to going to training and there's 40 people there, coaches and players, and you're all trying to do the same thing and the crack of it and everything. And I love that. Like, I love that, trying to achieve as a group and the crack you have as a group and that bond you get as well. So it's hugely motivating to kind of stay at a level where I can enjoy that. And then I suppose the last thing is I realized I'm pretty good at it. And like, unlike my golfing career where I convinced myself if I go out 3 times a week I'd be unreal, which is never going to happen. I kind of realized, look, if I put a lot of time into this and connect with people and kind of get good peers around me, that I could be quite good at it. So that's a motivating thing for me, is to stay at it. Like, even when results don't go your way and stuff, is like, no, you're like, I'm all right at this. If I put a bit of time into it, I might be able to get somewhere with it. And that's a motivating thing for me as well, is to see where I can go with it, I suppose. Unlike the golf, which is going nowhere.
No, I can relate to all of those. Yeah. Definitely the first one. Yeah.
It's such a big thing, I suppose, especially we're lucky enough to be from Limerick as well. So I suppose we've been exposed to these big days as supporters, and you're kind of sitting in the stand going, Jesus, what's it like to be down there? Like, and it's just like, there's no way I'm making it as a player. I don't know what the other avenue is. I didn't get enough points to be a physiotherapist. So
I had an older brother, Joe. Like, Joe was fairly successful underage, so I spent a lot of time watching what he was doing, and I suppose I didn't really get to his level, so there's a lot of that in it. Definitely.
Okay, 2 more on, use them wisely.
2 more. What's been your greatest challenge as a coach?
This is interesting. Okay, so again, I put a lot of thought into this. This is a really good question. And I was kind of thinking about, like, I suppose, different challenges that popped up over time, right? But I suppose they're more acute challenges, kind of things you have to deal with in the here and now. But I think the biggest challenge to me as a coach has been that I went in at a high level very early and I wasn't ready for it.
Okay.
So I suppose 2014, I was involved in Limerick Camogie with a real successful year. We won a minor championship, we won an intermediate championship. We had a year at senior, and then Joe Quaid got the Kildare job. And I went in as the head coach at Kildare, and like, my very first senior hurling competitive game was a National League game against Antrim above in Ballycastle. My very first game I was ever involved with as a senior coach. And I just remember coming down, and we stopped somewhere in Dundalk. We got hockeyed. And I just looked at Willie Banks. The 2 of us were pale as ghosts, going, like, what are we at here? Like, we are so far out of our depth. But I was very lucky. Peter Byrne, you might know, he was kind of involved with Paul's team there that won the Leinster 20s.
Yeah,
he was unbelievable.
2 minutes down the road from me here.
Oh, yeah, from Celebrate, sure, yeah. And he was class. And like, he was the guy who really showed me how to coach senior hurling. And I suppose I was lucky that I learned from him. But look, that would have been the biggest challenge. And I suppose what I found when I went back to the minors then this year on, in that I'd only ever coached senior teams, whether that was club level or county level, that my fundamentals, my basics weren't good enough for the minors. Because I suppose if you're involved at senior level, a lot of what you're doing is kind of tactical stuff. It's game plan stuff. It's movement patterns, that kind of stuff, because they're kind of at a certain level already, or they should be anyway. Whereas I found when I went back to the minors, then what I was providing for them wasn't good enough with regards to, I suppose, improving them as technicians, improving the technical side of their play. So that was a massive challenge for them as well, is to go in and kind of reassess where I was as a coach, the language I was using, my approach to it, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, look, I'm delighted that I have gone on that journey, because if I'd have gone in as a coach of a junior team or an intermediate club team, there's no guarantee I would have got to where I was, because it's so hard to get there, right? So I'm grateful that I went in at the top, but it was a huge challenge, huge learning curve for me as a coach to try and even get anywhere near the level. Like those times we'd be playing like Antrim and Westmeath, and like they're playing chess, we were playing checkers. It was just different. So yeah, that's been the biggest challenge, I think. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. I can relate to it. I'm probably in a better place now than I was in 2009. No, without question, in a better place now than I was in 2019 to coach at a certain level. you know. So yeah, but being aware of it, I think, is the most important thing.
Yeah.
If you're not aware, like if you're thinking you're doing a great job, and
I
things
hear
are
you. I'm
falling
the
down
man here.
around you.
Jesus, class. I'm a senior intercounty coach.
Yeah,
But
this tracksuit, lovely. Yeah,
yeah.
You know, and you're making shite of it. You know, you have to understand when you're not.
The big thing the Americans go for, Owen, is how many games have you coached? How many games have you coached, right? And I tracked it there. So I kept track of all the games over the years. And just last year, I just passed my 50th senior championship match coached.
Okay.
So like, I think like even from I suppose experience on the line and just like sure I could have called myself an intercounty coach in 2016 with Kildare. Sure, it wasn't like I wasn't even related to it. I just happened to be a coach of an intercounty team. Whereas I think I'm far closer to it now with that experience built up of those championship games. I think it's seasons on the training pitch, games on the line, real games, real championship games. That's where you start to go, right, I'm actually getting experience at this now. And maybe if I get to 100 games or 150 games, which I suppose in hurling's a lot harder to get to because you don't have that many you don't have that many championship games, then I'd probably start to feel a bit more comfortable in my skin, to be honest.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Yeah, it's tough going.
Last question. I think this for me would be the one that who do you look for feedback from on your coaching and why?
Yeah, look, this is a real interesting one, and so the probably the straight answer is I don't, right? If I'm being brutally honest with myself, right, or for I suppose meaningful feedback anyway, right? I'm in a peer group. There's 4 of us in a peer group on WhatsApp, and we coach at different levels and different teams, and we're constantly just throwing out scenarios and stuff to each other. So that's more of a learning thing, right? I was very lucky that, say, in Dublin, I had Colm Codd, Paul Ahern. Colm was the analyst selector, Paul Ahern, sports psychologist. And between the two of them, they gave me quite a lot of feedback on simple things like body language, my behavior on the line, your coaching language, things like that. But so there's a guy called Ross Corbett that he was involved in Camogie for a while, and then he went to the Sydney Swans, but he's after doing a project with Limerick Academy for his PhD, whereby he videoed the coaches and had them mic'd up and for a whole season. I'd love to do something like that and actually get proper feedback on what I'm saying during sessions. Because like, okay, if you went to Mick Kevill, Dublin minor manager, you go, yeah, geez, Sully was class. But like, I'm kind of going, does he think I'm class because I always have a smile on my face and I'm running around the place and I bring a huge energy to it? Or am I actually good at coaching? I think you have to be kind of careful who you get feedback from as well. And I would love to go and get proper feedback. Maybe it's something Orla could do with us. We could make a series out of it. Mic us up on the line, which would be dangerous, and video us and actually just see what are we actually delivering to the players and what are we delivering to the players versus what we expected to deliver, and is it close to what we envisaged going out and that kind of stuff. And yeah, so the straight answer for you on is I probably don't get proper meaningful feedback from anyone. I get some sort of feedback from a number of different areas, but it's something I would love to do. Yeah. What about yourself?
It comes back to, look, Paul is the kind of the fella I hop off the most. We have completely different ideas on how hurling is played and how to coach it and stuff like that. So it's good that both of us aren't just like nothing dogs. Mm-hmm. So Paul would be the one that I would definitely go to for feedback. Peter Byrne, who you spoke of there, I've done work with Peter and I've used Peter a lot. He's excellent, very, very honest. He's not afraid to tell it as it is. Mm-hmm. But the one I go back to is the players. I like the players to tell me, did they understand that? Did they get value from it? Did it help them? Did they understand what we're trying to achieve? And the first few times I did that, it can be hard to listen to, mm-hmm. You know, because when did I start doing it? Started doing it about 3 or 4 years ago. After the year I had with the Dublin seniors, I started doing it. So about 2020, I'd say. And there is things you don't want to hear. You know, you could have spent half an hour doing something and you could ask a player and he's telling you and you're going, that's not what I was trying to achieve. That's not what I was trying to do. And you kind of have to go and go, okay, I didn't get my message across. That didn't land. So I've just wasted 30 minutes, you know, and you find then, like you're saying, it's important to go to, there's certain people that understand, what's happening on the pitch, and there's certain people in groups and teams that will give you honest. There's always those that will tell you what you want to hear, because will I be picked on Saturday?
Yeah.
I better tell him something. But there's then you find the people that go, okay, he's going to tell me you did that right, or we know what we're doing, or that clicked, or it didn't, and you kind of go to them. So between other coaches as well, I'd often ask a coach to watch what I'm doing and see, do they understand what's happening, and that process is all the more easier by having the visual of the exercise, having the walkthrough, having the once you go through that process,
context of what you're trying to
because
achieve.
They understand, okay, this is what he's trying to achieve in this exercise, so I can talk to him about it afterwards. So that helps.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's a brave thing to do, to go to your players, isn't it? Because you say, like, you have to be so open to getting it between the eyes at times. And it's interesting about the other coaches. I find like the GA can be quite insular. I think these conversations that I'm having with you, and I've seen the other guests, David Herty, Shane Hassett, they're very open, I think. But GA coaches have only become maybe that open in the last couple of years. It's all very much a look, I invented the game now, and this is how I do it, and I'm not going to tell you anything, and all this kind of stuff. So it's that peer
we love
feedback
to fool
is great.
ourselves, think we've invented something, but there's nothing new. There's nothing new out there.
No.
You think you're, and the fact of the matter is, it's about who does it better.
Yeah.
Who's able to implement it better.
Yeah. And there's a bit of a confidence in that as well, isn't there? Like, you invite someone into a session and say, look, you can not I don't mean that, but you can take all the notes you want, but like, I still back myself to deliver this better because I know the nuances of it and I know why I'm doing it, so like you can have all the drills you want, but if you don't understand it.
It's very funny. I was at a coaching conference there last year, and Mark Dunn, Crokes, Dublin, was actually implementing a specific exercise. And
You're there as the Na Fianna coach, obviously.
Yeah, Na Fianna coach, Crokes coach. And Martin Barry was standing beside me. I think it was Martin was standing beside me, and he was doing something. He goes, how would you do it? And I said, completely different the way he's doing it. So it just shows, look, we all do different things in different ways, and we all have our own way of doing things. And look, Mark is excellent at what he does, obviously. But it was just funny to see the two different, and for another coach to ask you, would you do it that way? And I go, no, maybe that's where I'm going wrong.
No, but that's the fascinating thing is like, it's like, that's why I love doing these, is just, we're all trying to ultimately get to the same point where your team is performing well enough to win, but there's so many different ways of getting there. It's just like, it's fascinating. It really is. Final question on 30 years time, you hang up the whistle. Yeah, you might get 30 years out of yourself yet. What's the one achievement you want to have in the bag?
It's a good question, and I can't answer it because it's changed over the years. When I started off, I wanted to win every All-Ireland that was ever made and wanted to have a bag full of medals and, be the most successful. It just doesn't happen that way. You have to be realistic with yourself. You're going to lose more than you're going to win. Maybe I lose more than most, but like I've two All-Ireland minors. All-Ireland minor semi-finals lost. I wanted to really win a minor. I'm actually back in that process to hopefully get there again, but you can never go, I want to win a minor. You have to go through the process and get the best team out. 2 goes off, that didn't happen. I lost 2 Fitz semi-finals and a Fitz final. Like, Fitzgibbon for me is I was lucky enough to play in good colleges teams, and it's a massive part of me as a coach and me as a manager. But I kind of have to park it and kind of go, what will happen? Prepare your team as best you can. And you might win a Fitz, you might not. James Donoghue is in Wexford. He spent 5-6 years with me between freshers and Fitz and stuff like that. And we didn't win it. And it's one of the things that, upsets him an awful lot. But, we were involved. We were at the top end of that for a couple of years, and it was extremely enjoyable. We didn't win it, so be it. Moving on to Na Fianna, I've lost 2 county finals with Na Fianna. There's nothing more than I'd like to win a county final with Na Fianna, of course. But you're not in control of that. You have to prepare the team as best you can, put the things in the best place that they can. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, and you talk about the slump time, Jesus, like those weeks after losing county finals or Fitz finals or minor finals or semi-finals, you know, being able to deal with them. And look, and it goes back to me being sick a couple of years ago. You have to put things in context. You know, you do have to put it. We're privileged. We're involved in good setups, and it's very enjoyable. But at the end of the day, it's hurling, and I know it's probably the most important things in our lives.
Yeah.
But you have to park it, and you have to kind of go, okay, it didn't happen for whatever reason, and you got to move on.
Yeah, there's a guy who was involved with, Kieran McDermott, real class guy. I think he might have been actually a selector on that class UL team he ran into blowing Mallow that day. They were outrageous.
Yeah,
Mikey Casey and Sean Finn came on as subs.
Yeah, Kyle Hayes was number 24.
Yeah. The luxury playing Hago wing back, but his big thing was, he said, pure sport, and his philosophy was, once you can acknowledge that in the general scheme of things in life that sport doesn't matter, but you're still willing to give every ounce of your being to it, he says that's the purity of it. It's like you've acknowledged that it doesn't really matter, but you can find that collective cause and still be willing to give everything to it. And we played a challenge match one night with UL, below St. Pat's, wet night, January, about 12 people at it, and Galway were after winning the All-Ireland, and we were after winning the Ashbourne. And the two teams went hell for leather at it, blowing Pats, and the game ended up a draw. I remember Kieran just coming out going, nobody will ever remember that game, but that's why we get involved in sport. That was pure, like there was nothing on the line here. But it's all, as you say, it's all put into perspective of it not really mattering at the end of the day, you know, but we still give everything to it.
We still give everything, and it takes up so much part of our lives.
Yeah.
Look, I never even mentioned Liam McCarthy because I think I've parked that one now at this stage.
I went for a job interview, not a job interview, but a manager was looking for a coach, and he asked me to sit down with him, and we were going to have a chat about whether it would work or whatever. And he asked me something similar to that, kind of. That's why I asked it, because I'm kind of curious. And I'd say he thought I was the most cynical man of all time. And he said, "What was my ambition, John? What's my goal?" And I was like, listen, lad, I stopped having goals and ambitions in sport a long time ago, because if you're operating at the elite level, you're a bounce of a ball or a referee's decision or a mistake away from losing. You mightn't have a job next year. You can't go, well, I'm going to take the Dublin minors now, and then I'll have the Dublin 20s in 2 years, and then, geez, I might get back to the Limerick seniors, and then we'll win to Liam McCarthy. It's like, nah. All you can do when you're at our level is take the next job, give it absolutely everything, do it to the best of your ability. Whatever happens out of that will happen. You know, it might be good enough, might be not good enough. If people see you're giving your best and you're good enough, you might get another opportunity out of it. That's it. I think the idea is setting. We all have our dreams. Sure, look, it'd be great to go up the Hogan stand, wouldn't it, and get your hands on the Liam McCarthy. Sure, who wouldn't want to do that? But I think if you set that out as your out and out goal, and every time you're doing a job, I think you lose sight of what's in front of your face. I think really, but yeah. Eoin, that was absolutely thoroughly enjoyable. I have a page full of notes made here of stuff you've said for my own learning. So
and likewise with your questions, yeah.
I hope the listeners got something out of it as well. Orla's going to stick up the links, but for anyone that's interested in seeing a bit more of what Eoin's about, it's on Twitter. It's at NoPlanBGAA, the GAA performance process. So check the lads out. Their breakdown games and everything is top class. And Eoin, I thoroughly enjoyed that. I genuinely mean that. And look, thanks very much for your time.
100%. No problem, Adrian.